Big news, Hawkeye fans. Ben McCollum just landed a massive get from the portal. 6'9" Alvaro Folgueiras is heading to Iowa. We're breaking down what this big man means in the black and gold today.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I've been covering the Iowa Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio across the state of Iowa, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network with stations in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Quad City, Sioux City, and our flagship 106.3 KXNO in Des Moines each weekday from noon until 2. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. It is a busy time. We got a lot going on. The portal open for football and basketball. We wrap up the final week of football and spring practice. We're going to be hearing from Scott Dochterman a little bit later on today. We're going to talk with Doc about all the comings and goings in the transfer portal. And we are also going to take a look a little bit later on in the program today with a huge weekend in baseball for the Iowa baseball team. A sweep on the road at Michigan, not just solidifying themselves at the top of the Big Ten, but helping their computer numbers, the RPI, going the way of the Hawkeyes. And some good news there as Iowa tries to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament. But we begin today's program with a look at the transfer portal from the basketball side of things after Iowa has nabbed a commitment officially from Alvaro Folgueiras out of Spain. He played the last 2 seasons at Robert Morris. That's where he began his eligibility. This is a really good get for Ben McCollum. You start with some of the teams that were after him: Villanova, Providence, a couple of Big East schools. And, as we've talked about in the past, a lot of those Big East schools have a pretty big step forward, an opportunity for them because they don't have football. And that means that their NIL budget, the people that are investing in their programs, well, where are they going to be spending their money? It's, for the most part, men's basketball, and certainly gives them a leg up. When you look at programs like Villanova, like Creighton, like Xavier, and the amount of money that they invest, it's a big leg up and certainly a big advantage there. Now, Providence was not one of the more wheel-heeled ones, and they got a commitment from another big guy that I was off after in Duke Brennan, who out of Grand Canyon that they were looking at, but he made his commitment to Villanova. That aside, though, let's get into it here and take a peek at what I was going to be getting with Folgueiras. And that's what it is, though it is just F-O-L. It is then the pronunciation guide that was handed out to us. Folgueiras is how you pronounce his last name. So 6'9", 250, very skilled offensive player. He is really your prototypical kind of Euro guy that you think about. Great shooting ability, can do it with a little bit of finesse, a step through. There are a couple of highlights you saw, what we call the Euro step, the step through maneuvers that he had. Skilled, played well in the game against Alabama in the NCAA tournament when Robert Morris put the number 2 seed on the ropes and had them right there for a while. An opportunity, one of the few upsets in the early going of the NCAA tournament. He looked the part in that one. He scored 15 and 10 in that game against Alabama. Now, he's not a banger. He's not a rim protector. That's not what you're getting here with Folgueiras. And I still believe that Iowa probably needs more as it pertains to the side and kind of size and the way that they're built. Is that is something that is definitely going to be impactful, I believe, for this Iowa team and what they're going to be and what they're going to look like. If they're going to be a team that is going to be able to win with defense and win on that end of the floor, I still think there is a little bit more that needs to be done in order to get to that mark. But mention his shooting ability. So this is a 41% three-point shooter. So a guy that is skilled like that can shoot it from the outside in the way that Iowa's going to play, the way that Iowa wants to play in the Ben McCollum system, I think makes a ton of sense. You think of the pick and roll, the pick and pop game that they're going to be able to have, just the way that this is going to be set up, I think is incredibly good. This, for me, pushes this now. My expectation level right now, baseline level, is there going to be a tournament team in year number 1? And I understand there's plenty of people out there that say that's too much. You're going through a rebuild. You look at the roster, it's not even close to set. You are bringing in a bunch of players from the mid-major, even low major level. They're not going to be able to compete in the Big Ten right away. I'm a believer. Maybe it's me sipping the Kool-Aid of Ben McCollum. That very well could be the case. I believe in the system. I believe in him as a coach. From the number of people that we have talked to and heard from, and the conversations, real basketball people, college basketball people, the things they say about Ben McCollum. He's taking his program, he's lifted it up, and he just moved it a couple hours east. And to have the 5 Drake guys, but most importantly, of course, is bringing in Bennett Stearns. But to do that, to be able to hit the ground running where it's not teaching a whole new crew, it's not teaching a whole new group. When you look at experience and guys and just the knowledge base that you grow as a coach with somebody after getting through and going through a season and how you can build upon that. And we see it this season in college basketball, right? What happened this year? It was teams that were veteran. It was teams that played together. Look at that Florida team. A very experienced team. And yes, they brought in new parts and there were new faces, and that's going to be the case in everybody in college basketball going forward. But you saw Houston, Florida, teams that were together, teams that know each other, teams that most importantly were veteran, they were able to win. Now, that's not to say that I was going to be a Final Four contender in year number 1. I think that is silly. But I do believe that they're going to be in contention to be an NCAA tournament team. That is the minimum baseline. Remember, this Iowa team this year, as disappointing as they were, as frustrating as the season one, and as banged up as they were, they still had a chance to run things down. They had an opportunity, even as bad as things were, to go on a little bit of a run and to potentially put themselves in consideration. Look around and look around the blueprint. Look at the teams that get into the tournament late, year after year now. That is going to happen, in my mind, for this Iowa team. Alvaro Folgueiras is a Hawkeye. The way that he sets up in this Iowa offense is going to be great. So you got the Drake holdovers, the guys that came along with it, Cooper Koch coming back. But what is remaining? What do they still need? Toulson, the Utah Valley transfer, he ended up committing to TCU. So they're still in the market for a shooter. And I think that is going to be probably the main, if you're talking about money, that's probably the main spot that it's going to be. If you're still looking at those lists, top available transfers, guys that have some Iowa interest, those kind of things, I think another shooter might be higher on the pecking list now than another big. But they do need another big. They absolutely need a big body rim protector. You're looking for that guy very much like what you got late in the season from Evan Bronze. They like somebody maybe a little bit taller, maybe that kind of 6'11" frame. They're not a dime a dozen. They're not cheap. Big guys just in general. But really what you're looking for is not a skilled offensive player. You're looking for a defender. You're looking for 5 fouls a game, a guy that can come in. And when you're going up against a behemoth from Purdue or Michigan State or a big guy that's just eating you alive, you're looking for that player that can come in and impact the game in that fashion. Maybe not a starter, maybe is a starter. So how does the starting lineup look for Iowa basketball? That's something we're going to dissect a little bit more as we make our way throughout this week. 2 big guys now, Manoa and Folgueiras. Can both of those guys play together? One at the 4, one at the 5, vice versa. They're both basically 4s, but you play them together. Is that a route you can go? Can Cooper Koch play the small forward position? I think that's another thought of the way that this team is going to be built. What does it mean for guys like Tavion Banks and how he's going to fit in, and who's going to be alongside Sturts in the backcourt? Obviously, we know that. And the K-State transfer, what they're going to get and the way that they're going to be built on that front. So there's a ton going on. It's a great time, and this was the big one. This was the big one that still remained out there to get a quality big, and Iowa was able to do just that. One more basketball note for you is Iowa, the tournament that they're going to be playing in coming up this year in year number 1 of the Ben McCollum era. This is from the University of Iowa, and the announcement from the university saying this. They will be playing in the 2025 Acrisure Series. That is November 25th and 26th in Palm Desert, California. This will be a 2-game event. So not an 8-team bracket, nothing like that. This will just be a 2-game event. Other teams that are involved include Colorado, Minnesota, not going to play the Gophers, likely, Utah, Stanford, Washington, another Big Ten team, San Francisco, Santa Clara, San Jose State, Cal Baptist, San Diego, Nevada, Steve Alford, Loyola Tulsa, and UNI, the other programs that are involved. So no matchups at this point, but Iowa will be playing 2 games out in California, November 25th and 26th. Looking forward to that as we get our eyes on this Iowa basketball team. Not just basketball, we got to talk some football. Scott Dochterman is going to join us. We're going to talk a little bit to Doc about what is happening in the world of the Hawkeyes. Want to start with Bryce George, that big commitment. We touched on it on Friday's program. You can always go back. Shout out to your everydayers. You were with us at that time. You know all about that as we got you covered on that front. We'll talk football with Scott Dochterman as we make our way through the last week of spring practice, plus a little football talk as well as basketball. Scott Dochterman joins us next. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert control and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, you can use the promo code, how about this, SH5, that's SH5 for 5% off your first order with Supply House. Online, supplyhouse.com. Go to the Hawkeye front. Bryce George over on Friday made his commitment to the Hawkeyes. Now, conflicting reports. Some people say, hey, there's no way he can make the jump from D2 and become a left tackle in the Big Ten. Other people believe that's what it is. What did you read in, and do you believe that this is a guy that can come in and compete for that left tackle spot, because they certainly don't have any experience over there?
Absolutely he can. And I think, I give somebody the name Ryan Ramczyk, who was at, D3, Wisconsin, take your pick, whatever city. I can't remember.
I think he just retired too, did he not? I think he just retired. Yeah.
So, and then he went to the Badgers and then became a first rounder. And in 1 year, went from D3 to starting in the Big Ten. And I think that Bryce George has the kind of ability and the success, and he's not a project. I mean, he's built himself in there, and I would say Ferris State is much more closer to an FCS program or even a G5 program than they are, just AD2 per se. So I think, he definitely fits in there. And now whether or not he starts at left tackle or they shuffle the deck a little bit, or maybe he kicks inside, that remains to be seen. And that's what that's why you pay your offensive line coach, and why your head coach is an offensive line guru. But I do think that he's going to start. He's going to be a very successful player for Iowa. He is a very good offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, Quinn Miners went from Wisconsin Whitewater to all-pro right guard in the span of like 3 years. So if you can play, they're going to find you. And I think they've got a good one here, Doc. What else do you think? That seemingly there's more buzz positive-wise around the wide receiver position than we've heard in some time. Now, the bar hasn't been set real high, as you know, the last couple of years, and part of that falls on the quarterback. Do you think that this is warranted, that this might be a breakout year for the wide receiver group at Iowa?
I think it's fair for everybody to be skeptical, hopefully not cynical about it, but I do think that they have made some strides. And from what I've talked to a few people on the other side of the ball, they've said they've given us all that we can handle this spring on offense, which is really a good sign for Iowa, that here they are. They're, this offense that was so bad for so long is now being very competitive with usually a pretty good defense in the Big Ten. And of course it brings questions to the other side, like how good are you? But we'll find out a little more on Saturday, I suppose. But I think overall the receivers are improved. That is for sure. That they have now an influx of guys who are, some of them are much more experienced, some are new, and I think overall, they're going to find 3 or 4 who could play. And if you have a quarterback like Mark Gronowski, then you're going to have the opportunity to move the ball through the air, which is something we haven't seen in a long time in Iowa City.
Doc, I remember even before Mark Gronowski was in the portal, you brought up Mark Gronowski. You've watched this guy. What is it about him? Take us back to that time and why you believe, because listening to you, Doc, now these last few months, it feels like you're kind of all in that Mark Gronowski is the quarterback that they need. Why is it that you think this is going to be a good fit?
He can hit every throw, Trent. He's got every factor that you're looking for in a good quarterback. He's tough. He's physical. He's durable. He played through a torn labrum, I believe it was, late last year, and didn't play his best football, but he played good enough. I mean, they got those national semifinals, and he's got the X factor that all good quarterbacks have, which is he's able to make plays in clutch moments, and he's been able to do that for a long, long time. But then you look at the physical attributes. He's capable of running. He can run. He's not required to run because he can throw the entire route tree. He can throw the curl, the slant, the out, but he also can throw the deep ball, which Iowa hasn't had since Stanley that can do it consistently. Petrus had the arm, just missed a lot. And even Nate missed a lot of those deep throws. But I think Gronowski is much more accurate down the field. So you have those elements. Plus, he has been in an offense that has same verbiage that this one does. So he's not walking in. I mean, it's different. It's probably like going from Bavaria to Berlin and types of German, but it's still the same background. I think he's got every kind of intangible and tangible quality that can help Iowa be very successful at that position. And you throw in a really good offensive line that just got better, an ascending wide receiver core, a good tight end, a couple of good running backs. This offense, I mean, it averaged, 12 plus points more per game last year over year without a passing offense. I think that you can get this offense could hit 30 plus next year without any problems.
Yeah, the defense has been the story going into the season the last few years. Maybe the tables have turned, and we're talking about this offense carrying this team this year. Doc, give me a Hawkeye that you're going to be watching Thursday, probably not Thursday, but Friday or Saturday, to see if they get their name called. Is there one draft eligible that may or may not get drafted or late in a late round pick? Who would that person be that you're going to be watching where they fall, or if they have to wait to sign as a free agent?
I think Jamari Harris is the most interesting one because, he did opt out, 2 games left in the season. And, I wrote about him last week with opt-outs and including Cam Ward and just how much the NFL takes a look at it and how do they view what he did late in the year? Do they view it as a non-factor or is it a negative? Because if it's a non-factor, then Jamari Harris might be a 5th round pick. If they view it as a negative, then somebody may take a flyer on him in the 7th round, or maybe they'll just wait to make him a free agent. So I think how they view him is, to me, the most fascinating part. There's a couple of other players. I think Connor Colby is a late guy. Jay Higgins is probably a 6th round player, which, they could both play past their rounds and stuff. So I think they're guys to watch. Y.A. Black is another one. Sebastian Castro, I think they're more in anywhere from 3rd to 5th round range, but largely Jamari Harris just interests me because of kind of the baggage that he's going into this draft.
We know Kaleb Johnson's going to more than likely be the top pick out of the Hawkeye group that's going to go. When you look at Kaleb and you look at him making that jump to the next level in an incredibly deep running back draft, how does he fit for you as you've looked through some of the other prospects?
I think he's the 3rd best running back prospect, and there's a lot that are pretty close. So I mean, it's really about preference. Mm-hmm. And what we know from him and what we've seen is he's a one-cut go guy that works really well in zone or gap. So whatever your main style is, whatever you're majoring in as an offensive line and a blocking scheme, he works well. It's mostly zone. That he is, physical, durable, doesn't have a lot of wiggle, and is a good route runner or pass catcher, but not necessarily is his forte. So it's really going to be how does he fit in your offense and what you want from him. And I think in most offenses, probably 26 out of 32, he'd be perfect. And I think Chicago and Dallas are 2 that come to mind in the early 2nd round as guys as teams that he really fits well in what they want to do. And if not, he'll float around, but he's going to be a 2nd round guy. I think he's in the top 50. And, I like Hampton a little bit better because he has all of his skills, the same skills as Johnson does, except he's got a little more wiggle to him, I suppose, and maybe a little more active in the passing game. But I think Kaleb Johnson, if he gets in the right offense, he can be not only a 1,000-yard back right away, but be on the verge of a Pro Bowl. I mean, if he gets with a lot of really good blocking going in for him.
Doc, my last thing for you. When do you think we'll start to get some schedule nuggets, maybe primetime games, etc.? When do those start trickling out? It seems like, late April into May, we start to get a couple of little nuggets that we can chew on.
I would say one might be like last year was, I look at this moment, the Kentucky Derby was what announced that Penn State and West Virginia would be the first, I think, primetime game on NBC. And so I think that what we could see is maybe on the Kentucky Derby, you might see Penn State, Oregon being a whiteout State College at the end of September is probably one that I would point to as maybe getting leaked or thrown out there. And then, they just kind of drag it out. I would expect Fridays to be in early May, maybe mid-May after they have their meetings. And then usually right around Memorial Weekend is when you get the first 3 weeks of games.
Final thing for Scott Dochterman on the basketball front. Iowa got a big, not your traditional center, but Alvaro Folgueiras is his name, Spaniard from Robert Morris. Feels like a good fit for what they're going to do. Are they still looking for another big, or can they kind of go to this? We're going to play maybe a couple of undersized guys together. Can that work in the Big Ten, the roster as it's currently structured?
I think they need to get one more physical presence in the middle, and it doesn't have to be really anybody other than takes up space, gets a couple rebounds, fouls somebody a couple of times a game. I think they do need that because it is such a physical league. But this is a really good 4/5. And I mean, you look at what he was able to do, Horizon League MVP, and really good score inside and outside. I mean, he's your prototypical stretch 4. And I think in this offense and the efficiency with which they play, he is an outstanding get for Iowa. I mean, they've done a remarkable job in the portal getting guys who fit what they want to do, not just guys because you need bodies. And so I think they do need probably another 5. They could probably use another shooter, definitely a second point guard, which Ben McCollum said on TV show I'm on Monday nights on Iowa Live that he's looking for a second point guard as well, and some big body. So I would expect that to be part of it, but they're really putting themselves in a good position. And tonight we have Jan Jensen on our TV show, and so we'll see what she has to say, because I think they are kind of getting in I wouldn't say desperate, but maybe urgent need to find a point guard, because they're starting to really dry up on the market. What
time is that show we are on, as you know, statewide? Why don't promote that bad boy for us?
Yeah, 6:30 on KCRG 9.2 this week. Well, last week we had Ben McCollum. This week we have Jan Jensen. And next week we close out the season with Kirk Ferentz. So, it's me and Chelsea Brown from KCRG. And we'll have Jan on tonight talking about her first season as head coach and the prospects of the next season coming up.
Great stuff there from Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, and always appreciate the time of Doc. Well, great news in the transfer portal for Iowa basketball, as we talked about. Potentially more news coming for the football team in the portal. On the field, though, there's actually games going on. The Iowa baseball team, what a weekend they had. We talk about the sweep and how very well puts themselves in really good position now to be an NCAA tournament team. As we continue, this is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals, love these, can save you up to 60%. Speaking of those last-minute deals, I've hit them up before on Game Time. It's incredible just what kind of deals you can find there right up until the last minute, and not just for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all there on the Game Time app. Plus, their all-in pricing, means no surprise fees at checkout. When you see this, you know what you're going to pay right there on the app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back with you one final time. Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us. Shout out to the everydayers out there. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. And I got you covered on the Hawkeye front. Glad to have you with us today. So the weekend that was for Iowa baseball. We touched on it just a little bit on Friday night after Iowa got off to a good start, got the victory against the Wolverines. And, we were talking, getting a series win, just how important that was going to be for this team, potentially maintaining their spot in the top of the Big Ten. But to go out and get the sweep against a very solid Michigan team. Look, this is an elite team. This isn't a lock NCAA tournament team, anything like that. But this is a team that was up in the top third of the Big Ten. And Iowa went in there and they beat them really three different ways. The biggest part about this, though, is what happened in their RPI. So Iowa jumps up in the RPI. They are now up to 57th in the country going into Monday, sitting at 25-11 overall on the year. That incredible mark in the Big Ten, putting them in first places. They rose 34 points in the RPI. And now this is a team that very well needs to be considered an NCAA tournament team. So at 17-4 in the Big Ten, they sit in front of UCLA, Oregon, USC, and Washington. Those are the next teams. The four teams, of course, from the West Coast that came in this year. On top of it, Iowa, they have an even bigger opportunity to improve that resume. So it continues with the Indiana, coming to town this weekend. The midweek game against St. Thomas. That's a team that's 129 in the RPI. That can be at least a little bit of a boost. They go to Washington. We saw what road series do. The neutral series against Oregon State. That'll be here in Des Moines, played at Principal Park, and then wrapping up against Oregon. Oregon State is now third in the country. Oregon is ranked 16th. Talk about big opportunities. I was going to have that. But a great weekend that was. Great to see John Leo. He's had a couple of clips up of the last calls of the game. 6-5 in game one, 3-2 on Saturday, and then 7-4 on Sunday to complete the sweep. Get it done. 4 runs in the top of the 9th inning to put that one away. The bullpen's been tremendous. We talked a little bit about Cade Obermueller, who had some struggles and something that we just rarely see out of him, the Friday night starter for the Hawkeyes. This team is cooking, and they got a little swagger going to them. A lot of fun, a lot of local kids. It doesn't matter what part of the state. There's going to be a local kid out there from your area of the state. It shows you again the job that Rick Heller does year after year with this baseball program. I understand. Last year was a disappointment. The expectations, something that just so rarely happens for Iowa baseball, and it didn't work. Brought in a new pitching coach. That's definitely clicking. You can see that both with the bullpen, which was an issue last year, and even in that rotation, and how good they have been. Coming up with timely hits, playing ball, and just 40 dudes having fun. That's been the calling card this year, and they are getting it done. First place in the Big Ten for the Iowa baseball team, and let's continue the momentum coming up this week. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Final week of spring football. We will have plenty for you, getting ready for the open practice on Saturday as we continue to go through and preview the different position groups in football. Still open transfer portal also on the front for Iowa football and basketball. Anything happening there? And as Scott Dochterman just said, what's happening at that point guard spot for the Iowa women becoming a little bit concerning at this point. We'll continue to tackle that. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. I'm on the Hawkeye front, but your favorite MLB team, NFL with the draft here, they got you covered. In fact, speaking of that, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen today and every day. For your second listen, though, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players, including Kaleb Johnson, get ready for the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Back at it tomorrow, your team every day on the Hawkeye front. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. 5-star review on the podcast side. Thanks for being with us. Shout out to your everydayers. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.